My next patron question is from Lowell, who wants to know my thoughts on the state of the theatrical film business. Inside Out 2 surprised everyone of all the box office records it broke. A couple weeks prior, people were eulogizing the movie theater business due to Furiosa flopping and The Fall Guy underperforming on opening weekend. It's been my dream to star in and make a movie that's released on the big screen where all my friends and family can see it. And with the future of movie theaters being so uncertain, I was afraid that dream will never come true. But Inside Out 2's box office success has eased my anxiety a little, pun very much intended. So my question is, do you think there's hope for movie theaters? What do you think can be done to save movie theaters from extinction, and how can film fans like us convince the average person to go to the movies more? So since the pandemic, the box office has been in an odd place and has not reached the level it was prior to 2020, even with massive blockbusters like Inside Out 2, Deadpool & Wolverine, Barbie, and Top Gun: Maverick. This has led to questions like from Lowell about the future of movie theaters. There will be those periods, like earlier this year, when there were only a few hit movies, but then suddenly there was a whole bunch of them. It was not until mid-June when we saw a succession of films pull in big numbers, like Inside Out, Bad Boys: Ride or Die, A Quiet Place: Day One, Despicable Me 4, Twisters, and Deadpool & Wolverine, along with some smaller breakout films like Longlegs, and even something like Thelma, which pulled in solid numbers for an indie. Of course, we'll see what the rest of the year brings. Moana 2 feels like the kind of movie that I think could follow the path of Inside Out 2, as the first remains popular and beloved. You also have the likes of Transformers 1, The Wild Robot, Joker 2, Venom 3, Wicked, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which the studios have a lot of confidence could be big hits at the box office. So much of the focus and headlines are on these big blockbusters, and if you read interviews with theater owners, they really do welcome them and hope that the trailers audiences see before them or the posters in the lobby inspire people to come back. Last year, theaters were so happy to see Barbie and Oppenheimer pulling in massive amounts of people, either as a double feature or individually. They managed to excite people and convince them to go to theaters instead of waiting for streaming. Although a common refrain I've seen is that studios hurt movies when they put them on premium video on demand, but the data does not support this. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was put on PVOD 3 weeks into its theatrical run, but it kept on having incredible staying power. Its weekend gross even went up a week after it was released on digital, so people still went to see it in theaters. This was even a family film, so despite being cheaper to spend $20 on the home rental than to take the whole family to the theater, many still chose the theater experience. This summer also confirmed with Inside Out 2 that we can remove the people just wait for Disney Plus reasoning for why a Disney movie might flop. As I said, big budget tentpoles get the most attention, but I do often think about the indies, which smaller theaters do rely a lot on. That's been a tricky space lately to navigate. You do have the occasional movie like I Saw the TV Glow, which pulled in solid numbers in its limited release, even though never expanded beyond 469 theaters. That kind of film helps the independent theaters that tend to play them, and even provides some variety to the multiplex chains that might also give them a screening room. But there have also been the indie films where I look at the per theater average, and it's clear they mostly play to empty seats, and that really hurts those venues. It's so important that studios and distributors do provide a decent variety of films to theaters, with the majors contributing more than just big franchise pictures. I mentioned this in my recent video on Tom Rothman, but Sony Pictures appears to be the closest to supplying this variety, and building this slate similar to how the majors used to do things, and that does seem to serve them well. Bad Boys 4 is their biggest hit this year, but Sony also did well recently with the book adaptation It Ends With Us, a drama that catered primarily to women, and the romantic comedy Anyone But You, which brought in the date crowd and had a box office run similar to what rom-coms were known to do in the 90s and 2000s. They also supplied Fly Me to the Moon to theaters, which should have done a lot better, but I blame that on the marketing. What they needed to do was focus on the romantic comedy angle instead of make it seem like it was specifically about faking the moon landing, an aspect of the plot that does not come in until a good while into the movie and which the trailer removes a lot of context. That's another thing. Marketing is important. That's one reason Longlegs did so well, as the team at Neon did a terrific job of selling people on it and making them intrigued about what horrors they'll see. I think there'll be enough hits that'll keep people returning to theaters for a while. During the pandemic, I kept hearing people say that theaters were dead, and while some did unfortunately close their doors forever, many are still standing and providing films to viewers. However, you also need a nice spread of intriguing films throughout the year that appeal to multiple demographics, and studios cannot just rely on tentpoles. Thank you for your question, Lowell.